Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I just want to give you some basic retrieves to use with a small finesse swim bait. In my opinion, they are one of the absolute best fish catching lures that we have. It's one of my favorite baits to give to my two boys, one of my favorite baits to give to some beginning clients when I'm doing guide trips. They catch everything. They catch everything from bass to, largemouth and smallmouth and spotted bass. They catch walleye, they catch crappie, they catch perch, they catch pike and muskie even, and we're just talking about a small little finesse swim bait like this guy. This is a 3-3 Keitech, and then I've got it paired up here with a, this is a 3/16 ounce core tackle tush, internally weighted swim bait head. Getting beaten up at this point, catching a bunch of fish. And I figured I'd do a quick video just to show you the retrieves that I like to do, because it is different than a bigger swim bait. So the first one that I like to do, because you're talking a lot of times about lighter baits, lighter jig heads to be using, is to just throw it out and engage my reel. And I'm literally just letting that bait fall, pendulum to the bottom. This works great if you're fishing some deep water structure. It works great if you're fishing like floating docks for spotted bass. And then once I do that, so I hit the bottom there, I'm watching my line, and I just crank it probably 10 or 15 feet, and then I just hold my rod tip up and I'm just letting it pendulum again. Most of the bites in this case will come when I'm penduluming the bait. So I'm reeling it, I kill it, and the bait just free flowing back towards me. I wait until it hits the bottom or hits a depth where I think I'm too deep potentially for the fish, because you can do this for suspended fish. If you think the fish are 20 feet down over 40 feet of water, I'll let the bait fall down to that 25 foot range, and then I'll reel it up, and then I just tight line it. That's really all it is. I call it controlled slack lining. A lot of people call it tight lining. The next retrieve is just a straight retrieve. So I'm gonna let it fall to the depth that I want it to, and then I'm just gonna slow retrieve it. Really slow. But the key here is it's almost like I'm tight lining, but I'm keeping it at a specific depth. That's really the key. So if I want it to stay down 5 feet down, I'm just gonna let it fall, and then I'm trying to reel it so slow, I'm basically just keeping it at that depth. Now, every once in a while, probably 3 or 4 times on the cast, I'll actually stop. I'll pause it. I'll reel it probably a quarter of the way back, and then I stop it. And I'm just letting it fall just a little bit. I'm not tight lining it to get it down 10 or 15 feet. I'm just pausing it. So if you do have a fish that's a slow follower, they'll bite it a lot of times at that point. I'm really not letting my bait fall too deep. I'm just trying to break up the retrieve to give them something that's a little bit different. So that's one way, that it's really a straight retrieve, and 95% of the techniques out there, I would say, don't retrieve with a straight retrieve. Always break it up. And I am breaking it up a little bit by putting those pauses in it, but ultimately it's a straight retrieve with a handful of just little pauses. So that's the second way I like to do it. The third is a little bit more aggressive. So this is one where, I'm gonna let it fall to the depth that I want it to fall. In this case, I really actually want my bait closer to the bottom. It's a cold period of year. I'm gonna let it hit the bottom, and then I'm just gonna reel it fast, and sometimes you get bit like that. So that bait hit the bottom. It was sitting on the bottom. As soon as I cranked it, one hit it with me moving it fast. So that fish came to play, not a big one, but I'm happy that worked out. Generally on my retrieve videos, we don't catch one. Let me push my swim bait back down into place. So let me do that again for you and show you what I'm looking to do. So I'm throwing it out there, and I'm letting it fall on complete slack line. I'm letting my bait fall to the bottom as fast as possible. If I controlled it or tight lined it, my bait's gonna pendulum. I want my bait near the bottom, and I'm letting it, I just wanted to get to the bottom, because when it gets to the bottom, I'm gonna speed burn it. So my line just went slack completely, so I know it's at the bottom. and I'm just gonna burn it. Now in that last case, that fish hit it as soon as I was burning it. And then I'm gonna let it fall back to the bottom, basically on slack line. I'm gonna reel it fast. So I'm basically yo-yoing it. Now the key here is, if I use my rod and really swept it hard like I was snapping a jig, what's gonna happen with that a lot of times is you're gonna slide your bait down because it's too explosive. What I found is if I let my bait go to the bottom and I just burn the reel fast, that bait is coming forward and it's not so aggressive where you're gonna slide the bait down. And that's really the biggest key there is, you know, you don't want your bait to foul up. So those three are generally how I like to do it. Now a variation, oh, that was a bite. One popped it, he got my bait. He ripped my bait right off. One variation that I like to do of that, let me grab and put a new one on. I'll show you how to rig a core tackle. This is the Finesse Tush. So this is a 2/0 light wire hook. It's the same hook that's used in the guppy heads by Dirty Jigs. I'm gonna just slide it up there, make sure it's on straight, and you just push it on up and over the weight. Gives it a really nice streamlined profile and a look, just like that. And the variation to this is, instead of letting my bait fall to the bottom, I'm gonna fish it up high. So I'm just gonna let it hit, and then I'm gonna reel it fast, kill it, fast, kill it, fast, kill it. And like I just broke the surface there for a minute. I actually like that. Now this is a technique I like to fish in the summer when I'm fishing flats, because I want fish to think it's a fleeing minnow. So I throw it out there instead of letting it go to the bottom. I'm just burning it, and then I'll kill it every once in a while. And if it flutters out of the water like that, I'm totally fine with that, especially if you're fishing a lake that's got blueback herring or a lot of fast moving forage. The bass will actually like that. They hear the splash. That's something that lets them key in on it. Now this time of year, not gonna be your ideal thing because most of the fish are down deeper. So that's why I'm letting my bait go to the bottom. And generally speaking, the colder the water gets, the more I like to slow down. So in really cold water, so I'm gonna say mid 40s, that's when like the tight lining to me is one of my absolute best. But this time of year, we're like mid 50s right now. And that's when I like the bait to fall. And then I like to reel it fast, let it fall basically on a complete slack line, which is how I generated that last bite. And obviously this all depends on the depth that you're fishing too, right? Like if you're fishing 3 foot of water, your straight retrieves or your faster retrieves is probably going to be the primary thing, because you don't have the depth that you're trying to fish. Now in this case, I'm throwing out into about 18 feet, and that's a whole different ball game. Like I'm actually working uphill, and that's another thing I like to do when I'm fishing in this manner, because it's easier to keep my bait closer to the bottom if I work uphill, meaning I'm throwing to deep water and I'm bringing it shallow. So it's taking longer to fall on that slack line, but when I'm retrieving it, I'm keeping my bait closer to bottom because the bottom is actually coming up with the bait. Just something to keep in mind. The direction of contour lines that you're fishing, very important as well. With each of these different retrieve styles, that's something that you need to pay attention to. You know, if you're working parallel to a break line, if you're working uphill, downhill, if you're working a flat, just various things to pay attention to. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this retrieve video. It's a very versatile bait. Definitely, in my opinion, a little different than a big swim bait. But it is one of the best fish catching tools that we have. So give that a whirl, guys. Let me know in the comment section, are there a few other retrieve styles that you guys like? If so, why don't you throw it in the comment section so other people can learn from you as well. Otherwise, I appreciate all of you watching, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.